Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm your host for today's show, Rockin Robbie Billups. We got a great show planned for you tonight. We've been putting so much heat on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so much heat and anticipation and expectation on the future of the MCU and the future of the DCU under James Gunn, but we've been letting someone slide. We've talked about it here and there just a little bit, but I've been saying this for years. Sony has a spider-sized problem. That's what we're going to be talking about today, and we can only talk about it with some fantastic people joining us, and that includes the awesomeness of Amy and the ridiculousness of Rex. What is up, y'all?
Hey, we were just in the middle.
We're gonna sidebar towards the end of the show about Last Airbender. So we were talking about it.
One of the things me and Rex actually like together. Whoa, it's crazy.
So
I believe that's the fifth trumpet of the apocalypse from the book of Revelation, is the two of you agreeing on something, by the way. So let's all watch out. Everybody start praying.
Get your freeze-dried food, people. Okay. Get to the mountains.
But
so welcome into the show. Yeah, welcome into the show. So this is what we want to talk about today. So Madam Web, regardless of whether you've seen the movie or you haven't, and I haven't actually seen the movie yet, but I did watch a pretty good breakdown and talk to my buddy Strick, who had seen it. And man, this movie seems pretty bad, right? But it seemed like it was veering this way to begin with. So Sony has had success in the past with Spider-Man. They had Sam Raimi come in. They had two movies that are really considered classics of superhero movies, right? The first one with Tobey Maguire and the second one. Then they did Spider-Man 3, and it kind of fell apart after that. Then they got The Amazing Spider-Man. I know some people like those films. I don't. I'm not one of them. Then you had the Venom stuff. Some people like Venom. It wasn't quite for me. The animated movies, Spider-Verse movies, rock. They are huge successes for Sony.
Best of the best.
They cannot replicate that, though, somehow in their live-action films. And one of the things they've been trying to do is do this live-action spider-centric Spider-Verse, right, without actually utilizing Spider-Man and this and that. So we got Morbius, Madam Web. This is tanking their IP right now, right? Everybody's just making fun of it. Everything's becoming a meme. We got Craven on the horizon. I don't have much faith in that one. Sony's got a problem with how to utilize this franchise. And it's obviously live action wise without the help of Marvel, because their Spider-Man movies with Marvel, I'm not considering those part of this conversation because the MCU and Marvel Studios, they're involved in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, what are they doing? They have no idea what they're doing, and they just keep damaging their own brand over and over and over. And today I want to talk about why we think this is so, maybe what we can do to turn it around. So let's kick it off with positive Amy. Amy, what do you think about Sony, their spider properties, and where they're going?
I don't mind the idea of seeing specific supporting characters having their own stories. Like, I mean, let's take Venom, for example. Venom has his own series in the comics. Like, he's very much, again, not straight up villain. He's more anti-hero. He has a lot of layers. And then there's there's the whole symbiote mess. Like, so I get why you'd want to make a series about that. But then there's some characters like, I mean, we look at Morbius and Madam Web. Like, do they really need their own movies? Are they strong enough characters to get their own movies? And then Sony's just trying to stretch out their lore. You know what I mean? Maybe sometimes it depends on which character they decide to give the movie treatment to.
Yeah. They pick some odd ones. Like Morbius would be cool. Like I would be very excited for Jared Leto in a Morbius movie or as Morbius in a Spider-Man movie. Like that could be cool, right? And with Morbius, I was watching this one thing and this dude was talking about, you're toning down all the vampire stuff. And basically what you did was you gave us a half-baked vampire movie that didn't go all the way. And in a world in which we got Blade and Blade 2 and so many other vampire movies that work, it was kind of like a misstep and a misdirection. And also, if you think about that Morbius movie, you remember in the teaser or in the trailers, they had Michael Keaton there prevalent. They had like Spider-Man graffiti on the wall, all that, none of that. Like, it's like they're trying to fool people into thinking it's the MCU or something like that, right? Y'all hear me? They frozen? They're frozen. I've just been rambling. There you are. Are y'all there? Nope. They're still frozen.
We heard bits and parts, buddy. We did.
All right. Okay, then.
What can you wave? Can you wave? Move your head, you know, just so we know. Okay, thank you.
Proof. Okay, y'all good?
Proof of life. Do you have newspaper
back
with
on.
today's date?
All right, Rex. What do you think's going on with Sony right now?
All right, you need to get a pencil and paper. Okay, buckle up. All right, I'm going to draw you a map. Look, does it really surprise anyone? Let's look at Sony's history. Okay, so they had success with Tobey Maguire. Okay, let's call it what it is. Spider-Man was waiting to be made, a movie that has been attempted. We had the goofy TV miniseries in the 70s, you know, where Spider-Man shot out his spider like this. Okay, so it was something that people were anticipating, and you had a good cast, and it's a great story. Special effects were good, did well. 2, continuation of the MJ Peter story. Yeah, sure. Okay, 3, you got a little goofy because they didn't really introduce anything new. So we took a break. We had the Garfield Amazing Spider-Man. Now, I liked it more than you did. Okay, but essentially
I just love Andrew Garfield.
It's still the same story told slightly differently, but you're still living off that same old story, which is a very strong one, over and over. So then you made 2, and people are getting like, come on, dude, you know, okay, you change the actors and the actresses, and you're telling the same story. We get it. Okay, then we had the MCU with the Tom Holland. Okay, that was captured into the MCU. Now let's look at what Sony did with X-Men. Again, great storyline. Okay, great movie waiting to happen. Everybody was waiting for that movie to happen. Second one, not bad. Okay, then third one, what has happened after that? So what does that tell you? Sony can take a one shot with a great story, put a visually good film together, but after that, they've got nothing for you. They can't do what the MCU has done in the past and is failing to do now. They are one shot. Now, why they do Madam Web and things like that without involving Spider-Man, I believe that probably is an IP issue. I believe whatever they have with Spider-Man is tied to Disney in some way, shape, or form. So anything that comes out of it, they get a cut. But I get a funny feeling that Spider-Verse centric characters, they may get a bigger share. I don't know how it works, but it just seems a little funny to me. Animation, it's simple. They can't make that gap. They can't cross that gap for whatever reason it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a team that they hire for one and not the other. I can't tell.
That was something I brought up last week, like the specific team of people behind each project. I mean, you kind of got the same people working on Venom and Morbius and Madam Web, but you got the exclusive team working on the animated Spider-Verse movies.
Yeah, that's a head scratcher. We all got to admit. Okay, they wrote Morbius. I think you said this. What was it, on Monday or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, why would you take that team and have them do this?
Yeah, the 2 writers that wrote Morbius are also the 2 writers that wrote Gods of Egypt. They're also the 2 writers that wrote Dracula Untold, and now the 2 writers that did Madam Web. Like,
I watched Gods of Egypt, and I really wanted to like it. Okay, I really, really wanted to like it. I was like Amy for that movie. I really wanted to like it, and I couldn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, they got a track record of being some of the worst writers in Hollywood, and they just keep getting jobs from Sony in this own little property. Now, as far as the rights go, and nobody, you know, of course, none of us here know the specifics of the detail.
Right.
But those rights were signed over to Sony, like, at the time when Marvel was really in financial trouble, right?
Right.
And apparently they made a bad deal. And so, like, all Sony has to do is make Spider-Man movies, and they got it. I mean, they own all of the Spider-related characters. So they can play around with Morbius. They can play around with El Muerto, right? Because don't forget, that's another movie that allegedly they want to make. That's right. A Spider-Man villain that nobody knows about, they want to give their own movie. And it just this is what I think has happened. So as far as the rights go, I think that as long as they just keep making a Spider-Man movie every couple years or something, I think they're fine. It's kind of like what the Fox deal with the X-Men was. Like, if they keep making them, those rights won't revert back. Why would Sony want to let go of Spider-Man, one of the biggest boy brands in the world, right? Spider-Man merch sells crazy. Spider-Man is a very recognizable character. So I understand why Sony would want to keep this property and why they're making these movies. Now, they've made one of the better decisions lately by working along with Marvel Studios to produce those Spider-Man films that are firmly implanted into the MCU, right? And every time there's a new one coming on the horizon, there's another danger about whether or not they're going to get that deal worked out, right? So the big thing is Disney, Marvel, they're the ones that don't have Spider-Man. They're the ones that don't have Madam Web. They're the ones that don't have Morbius. They're the ones that don't have Venom, unless Sony agrees to allow them to use them. So I don't think that they needed to make a Madam Web movie to keep the rights of Madam Web, because as long as they're making Spider-Man movies, they got Spider-Man and all of the IP that's related to that, right? I think what happened was when they see the success of the MCU, they get very envious. And they're like, well, we can do the same thing. I mean, this is what they were saying years ago. We can do the same thing. There's so many characters in the world of just Spider-Man. We can have a universe to itself. Well, the problem is you made the deal with Disney to do Spider-Man with the MCU, right? And so now what are you doing? You're trying to make these movies without Spider-Man. You're trying to make a Spider-Man-centric cinematic universe without Spider-Man. That's the dumbest thing. This is so dumb. Could you imagine if DC is like, we're going to fucking do a whole Batman world, but we're not going to use Batman. We won't even use Robin. We're going to give you a Bane movie. We're going to give you a Mr. Freeze movie. Now, those movies might work because those are popular characters. It's kind of like why I think Venom worked, because Venom's a popular character. Madam Web, get out of here. You're crazy. There ain't no way. But I think they're envious, and I think now they are overdoing it. Why do we have a Craven movie, a Madam Web movie, a Morbius? Why do we have all these movies so close together, right?
All right. Can I play devil's advocate? Okay. I don't think it's a matter of jealousy. Okay. Quite honestly, I think it's this. Okay. They're looking at the numbers. That's what they're looking at. So somehow, and I don't know the specifics of the deal. They're looking at the numbers this way. Anywhere where we introduce a Spider-Verse character who is not Spider-Man into a Spider-Man movie, we got to share with Marvel. But if we move to a Craven movie or a Venom movie or a Madam Web movie, then we don't have to share. And what I mean by that, it's not just we're talking about what comes out of the movie, merchandising rights, action figures, all the merch that goes along with it. So if you make the merch off of a movie with Spider-Man in it, you're going to have to take a portion of that cut and give it to Marvel. So maybe in their eyes, what they're starting to see, all right, is that, well, even if we make a smaller pie, that whole pie's ours. If we do it ourselves and don't involve Spidey. Now, is that the right decision or the wrong decision? I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that I don't think it's something as simple as we're jealous and we're deluding ourselves. Okay. Because there's a lot of money that goes into it. And I don't believe that somebody in the room, the long boardroom table, doesn't go, excuse me, if we make 100% of X, that's better than 50% of X plus one, boys. So let's do it. Okay. So I think it's more about that. Frankie Gonzalez, I got to tell you, your one comment about what do the Japanese know, Sony is no longer just a Japanese company. Their headquarters may be in Japan, but it's a multinational corporation with employees all over the world. So it's not a question of that. It's just who actually ponied up all the money to actually say, I own it. Okay. Just like Lucasfilm didn't used to be a part of Disney. So I think it goes beyond that. Now, can they do it? No. I think Sony has proven through history that they can take a really good idea that somebody else has given them, a really good IP, and make a really great movie. Now, if you want us to grow beyond that and do what the MCU did, okay, and Feige did, no, we can't do that. Okay, and right up until now, we've seen how difficult that is. DC couldn't do it. Now, can they do it now with James Gunn at the helm? That remains to be seen. But I think they got a better shot of it now than they did in the past. So Sony has never had that one person, not that Feige to lead them. DC has seen the error of their ways and are trying to get one in Gunn. But as long as Sony does not have that, they're all going to be really crappy movies. And the only reason they keep making these movies is because they don't want to share part of the booty with Marvel. And if they involve Spider-Man, they have to. Even that ancillary character, I have to imagine, again, I don't know the specifics, but I've done this long enough to know that within the contract, it's got to say that, yeah, you own Madam Web. But if you need Spidey to show up to help Madam Web in a movie, then that Madam Web, that version of Madam Web, we get a cut of at the end of the day. All right.
But isn't it the opposite of that? Because Disney needs to get approval. They need to work with Sony in order to use Spider-Man. Right.
Yes,
so like Sony can make a Spider-Man movie that's not connected to Marvel Studios or Disney. Right.
That is correct. They cannot. That's correct. But that goes both ways. See, it's not a matter of who calls what shots. Sony owns Spidey. They want to be in the MCU because it raises the level of Spidey.
Yeah.
Okay. At least we saw with Avengers Endgame, which then means that, yes, you have to now share the action figure money, but now you're selling about 1 million times more action figures than you were when you tried to do your own movie. So again, about nothing but math, right? So those contracts always reciprocate. Okay, fair enough. We got to pay you if we use Spidey, okay, in the movie and a cut of it. But now, if you use Spidey the reverse way in our universe or somehow connect it with our universe, okay, because we now own a portion of Spidey, okay, then you got to pay us a cut of Madam Web or that version. Now, if you make a Spidey Madam Web movie totally disconnected with our universe, okay, then that's on you. Okay, so look at it this way: DC's done it with Batman. It's work for them, but it's kind of cumbersome, isn't it? You know, does it connect to the DCU? Does it not connect to the DCU? Is it alternate reality? You know, that's a matter of licensing as well.
Well, at least one thing about the DC stuff, like at least like Matt Reeves came right out and was like, this is not connected to the DCEU. This is a different Batman. This is its own thing, its own world. Sony does whatever it takes to make the audience think that is the MCU. So much to the point where when you go and watch like Dakota Johnson, Sydney Sweeney, in some of their interviews, they're talking about how proud they are to be a part of the MCU. I think they even got fooled. You know, they got completely just fooled by this. Like, and Sony does this. They did this with the marketing on Morbius, where they had Michael Keaton in there. And you watch that movie, Michael Keaton's not in that movie. There's no Spider-Man connection in that movie. Not really. It's like they're trying. It's not necessarily that. When I said envious, what I mean is like they want to be able to release 2 to 3 movies a year and have the success that the MCU was having at that time. But they don't, unlike the MCU, when it was really working, they don't care about these characters. Nobody there thought that Madam Web would be a good movie because there's something important to say about that character, and that's why they have to make this movie. No, they pumped out a cheap script. They pumped out a cheap movie, and they did it just with whatever they have. Like, that's why they're just like, who do we got? Oh, yeah, let's use that. Okay, who's that Spider-Man villain? Like, and remember, not forget, Silver and Black and Silver or something was supposed to be a movie they were going to do. A Silver Sable Black Cat movie. What? Like, get out your mind. And this Craven movie, y'all, it's don't be surprised when it's not good. I've been saying this for years. I don't trust Sony. Ever since they interfered with Spider-Man 3, it's been nothing but failure for me as far as live action goes. Now, the animated stuff, there is care to those movies. There's care about the characters. You can see the difference when you watch one of those movies. They care about the character of Miles. They care about Gwen. They care about the artistic expression of the movie, of making it technically sound, making it something groundbreaking. Now, Sony lucked out with that and the people that work on those Spider-Verse animated movies, right? But when it comes to this, they are straight up just trying to take advantage of the audience, trying to take advantage of the IP with no real care, not just about the characters, but care about trying to make a good movie. And they're just rushing these cheap things through, and it ain't working for them. And I understand that they would rather have all the money to themselves, but like Discovery Bay said, $500 million is better than 100% of a failure, which is what Morbius was and Madam Web. How much money is lost because of those two movies? Something's got to be done, right?
Well, you say that, but DC was doing it for years. And it took what? And James Gunn was still waiting, dude. And why'd they do that? Not because they thought, oh my gosh, we really owe our fans more. Okay. No, the fans just stopped going. They started bashing your movies. They're like, well, dude, we got to stop the slide, man. They're hating on us. Let's get James Gunn. Okay. All right. I mean, so they're not doing anything different than anybody else did. You know, I think Marvel had the advantage of listening to Feige in the beginning and letting him work its way out. But eventually, you always reach that critical mass. And so much has been put out. Now you got to, you know, now it's almost impossible. So he was at the right place at the right time. And now everybody's trying to repeat that. I don't know if that can be repeated.
Yeah.
Maybe that time is genuinely past. You know?
Amy, I got a question for you because you're very positive and you love looking forward to these things and stuff. But after seeing the reaction to Morbius, Madam Web, what's your anticipation level on Kraven right now?
Not much, and I'll admit, not much anticipation for Kraven because again, I don't know much about that character. I know the only familiarity I have with him is probably the Spider-Man cartoon from the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, from what I remember from the trailer, I guess it kind of hopes it's got. I mean, when the first Venom movie came out, like people kind of like, yeah, it's a bad movie, but a good kind of bad movie. So, and with the Madam Web reviews, it's like, it's just a bad movie. Maybe Kraven could be like a good bad movie, and then in a way that is kind of successful. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, and you know, Venom is a success for Sony. Venom was a big success. I think it was at the time the highest grossing October release or something like that. There was something going on. It broke some kind of record. It may not even stand anymore. I personally didn't really like the Venom movie that much, but I don't think it was as bad, and definitely the response wasn't as bad as these last couple, right? With Madam Web and Morbius. But Venom 2 was to me.
Well, yeah, you obviously didn't like them. I don't want to say that, you know, they were incredible, but they kind of had that feel, you know, best analogy I can make is Joker, you know, with Joaquin Phoenix. It had kind of that flair. I thought it was well cast. I'm a big fan of Tom Hardy, so I think that helped. Mm-hmm. But, you know, Madam Web, with what's her face, she doesn't have the acting chops of the Tom Hardy. I mean, you know, that was pure, let's go for the big name, and hopefully that'll carry us through, right?
Yeah.
OUG was talking about, you know, the superhero movie being a genre. Are there expectations for too high for? I think probably depending on the movie, the expectations can be a little high. She's got a point.
Well, so basically the idea that our expectations are too high just on the superhero genre, and we don't put maybe like this much behind like a horror film or a fantasy film or something like that. Well, the thing with this is horror films can be made with like a $30 million budget. All of these superhero movies are like ridiculous in the amount of money that they're spending. Also the marketing, right? So I don't think that we're being too harsh on superhero movies because we're also talking about franchises, right? So like when it comes to horror, there is a lot of expectation about the next Halloween movie or the next Friday the 13th project or whatever. There is already that, and it's been baked into that forever. When you deal with a fandom that is rabid, like a horror fandom. That's why there was so much discourse and controversy and discussion over that last Halloween movie, because a lot of people felt like the franchise betrayed the fans, right? And one thing, here's the thing. I don't care what the genre of the movie is. If the movie feels like it's aimed at me and I'm excited or I'm interested in it, I am going to hold that movie accountable. Like if it's a bad movie, it's a bad movie. Now, some bad movies can be good. You know, and maybe down the road, Madam Web's one of those ones that we can all like play a drinking game to or something. Every time somebody comes across dressed like Spider-Man, but not Spider-Man, that kind of stuff. Maybe we can play those games. But I think there's just as much expectation on horror franchises as there are superhero franchises, as there are action franchises. We're also harsh on Fast and Furious movies sometimes. We're harsh on Indiana Jones. We're harsh on Star Wars. It's not just superhero stuff that we're picking on. It's the franchises. And part of that is we're connected to franchises, right?
I would agree with you in the one sense that I guess OUG, that if you're going to play, big boy, if you're going to play big boy sports, then you have to take the big boy or big girl consequences. So now for years now, superhero genre has dominated the box office. Okay, absolutely dominated. There was a time when 50% of new movies, it was probably even higher than that, were superhero related. So if you're gonna bombard us with that, then you're gonna be judged, and that's part of the reason why we've become so critical, because they've churned out too many. They kept feeding us. Even lobster starts to taste kind of crappy if you eat it for every single meal.
Yeah. Or let's say, like, okay, so all these people love lobster. They come to our restaurant and our lobster dish is the number one thing. Man, we're making so much money. We'll make more money if we put less care into it and go cheaper. Let's start using frozen lobster. And then all of a sudden the audience, your customers at your restaurant, they're like, man, quality's going down. Bad reviews coming in, less people, less money, and it dips out. It's the same type thing, right? They're softening. They're giving us frozen lobster when for years we've come to enjoy fresh lobster straight from the bay or something like that, right? Does that analogy work, Rex?
Yeah, sort of. I think it does. I think on the one hand, the quality's getting cheapened, but more than that, it's a matter of time, right? If you're making 10 lobster dinners a night for 10 visitors to your restaurant, you're going to put a care in there. You're going to put everything's going to taste right, look right. But if you're making 1,000 for an entire region, guess what? Quality's going to fall off. That's just a fact of life, right? So, it's not. I don't know. OUG, I agree, but maybe
points over. I like what Nerdtastic's saying.
Yeah, I agree with that too. But maybe the genre is it's just been. It's time to move in a different direction.
It just needs, or at least needs a break.
Yeah, a break, if you will, whatever.
Yeah.
And the problem with these, do too now.
the big problem with these franchises, and is this is exactly what happened to DC, right? And it started happening to Marvel. You have so many things in the pipeline, and then one or two of them don't work. You don't have time to slow up. You don't have time to rethink, because the next one's on the way, and they're putting them out, and then
it's jumping out of a moving car on a highway.
Yeah.
So, okay, public service announcement. I'm sorry. I brought up the subject of lobster as an analogy. Just so everyone knows, Red Lobster, I believe, is currently having their lobster fest. So there you go. My apologies to everyone out there, because I kind of want lobster too.
Me too now. Who did bring up lobster first? Me or you?
It was me. I'm guilty. Guilty as charged, Your Honor.
What's the path forward? What do you think? What do you think what they need to do, Rex?
I don't see a path forward. I really don't. Their license is too limited. They've milked all the good stories out of them, right? So you can only tell the Spider-Man origin story so many times. You can only do the X-Men in certain ways so many times. So I don't really know. Deadpool is going to open up some things, and maybe they'll kind of get the hint and kind of move in that direction. I don't know. I really don't. Yeah. It's not an optimal situation. They're trying to hold on to this license, and they're not really letting it go because they want to make money off of it, but they're not going to be able to. I don't see a path forward. None of the characters in that universe, Big John, maybe Miles Morales, but again, you're going to tell the origin story, and then where are you going to go from there?
Plus, you've already been doing that in the animated movies, right?
Don't be surprised if the live action looks a lot like the animated. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the thing is, right now, I think it's good that they haven't done a Miles Morales live action, because I don't think that they could do it.
Please don't rush into it. I know people are thinking about it, but please don't rush into it. Please. Just please.
They will take elements of the animated They will take elements of the comic book story and they'll do that. And then once that's done, they have no way forward. And whether that'll be good or not, I don't know.
There was an interview with one of the writers on Madam Web, and they were like, well, in the comics, the character doesn't have much of a backstory, so we were able to kind of play and do what we wanted to. What? Yes, they do. Madam Web has a backstory. And here's another thing. I don't want to it's Madam Web. I don't really want to spoil much, but like you see in the marketing, so this movie's about 3 spider women that are trying to be saved by Madam Web from this dude Ezekiel who's trying to kill him down. He has a vision that these 3 spider women kill him. So now he's hunting them down and trying to kill them first.
Mm-hmm.
All of the scenes in the trailer that you've seen of the spider women in their costumes, that's all that's in the movie. And it's all from his vision. It doesn't actually happen. They're not spider women in the movie, right? Like they're just hunted down by this dude. And it's so crazy to me that they are really shady with their marketing. Like they are like, they want people, everybody thought that this was going to be like a Spider Women movie. All right, if that's what you want to do it and lean into it. But then also you got to respect those characters. You got to care about the story. And one of the things about slowing down that might help them would be, and I saw John Campea was saying this. He goes, when you get 5 projects all going at the same time, that dries up your talent pool. So instead of getting your best directors and writers on what you think needs to be your biggest, push for that year, you're splitting everything up. And so you're having to use lesser, and it's sad because like the lady, I think that directed this movie, I think this is their first movie, right? They've done a lot of television, but this is their first movie. That career's done. Right? Like ain't nobody. I mean, maybe Sony will hire her.
Well,
again.
Apparently not. Apparently, I wouldn't guarantee her career's done. Actually,
yeah. If those writers can keep getting hired, right?
Why not her?
Amy, what do you think the path forward would be for Sony right now?
A lot of people are saying just actually collaborate with Marvel when they want to do something in the future, or again, just take a break and let the animated Spider-Verse take the lead for a while. And I don't know how long we're going to wait until the 3rd movie, but just kind of just breathe.
Yeah. Put some care into it, and I don't think necessarily that they have to work with Marvel. I mean, that might be beneficial for some of them, but at the same time, I don't know if that's necessarily going to 100% fix it, but definitely what needs to happen is exactly what Manny was saying in the chat. Start with the story first. Do you have a story to tell with this character? Do you have something interesting to do? Do you have an interesting way to show this?
But you have to understand something. They never had to do that before when it was going well. Like with the Tobey Maguire, what did they really have to do? They told the origin story, right? That's pretty much what they did. You had a slew of bad guys that you could choose from, okay? And they were all interesting, okay? Thanks to guys like Ditko and everybody else. Okay, so you had something ready-made. You just had to convert it, figure out how to do live action, how to do the special effects. Okay, X-Men, same thing. Okay, you had this great, story. Now you're asking them to take not mainstream characters from comics, but more the side ones, like Craven, like Madam Web, and you've got to try to make something out of it. And let's face it, the origin stories are either hazy or, in the comic book world. The writers, the editors didn't spend a lot of time with it because they knew, this is not the main character. Okay, focus on Spider-Man. They love Spider-Man. Craven's a bad guy. Okay, he's a second-tier bad guy at best. Okay, all right. So let's focus on him. Okay, Spidey. So now you gotta create your own, and they failed at it miserably.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's hard to do. Well, you've seen guys like James Gunn do it with Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's not easy to do. Even Iron Man was, but it came at a time also, Spider-Man, X-Men, it came at a time when expectations were lower.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. These days our expectations are so high because why? Because every other week there's a series or a movie that surrounds superheroes coming out. I have choices. Okay. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we were talking about all the stuff we were talking about story first and all this stuff. And like, it's so crazy to me because that last Spider-Verse movie, the big bad guy was Spot.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have ever thought that Spot would have been not only an interesting villain for a Spidey movie, but a nuanced take on the character and a riveting and compelling version of Spot. So it's there. And I understand that we can talk about the writers, we can talk about the director, we can talk about all that, but still there are executives that read these scripts, that see these work prints of these movies and go, yeah. So there are people, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, who is making these decisions at Sony? And I honestly think maybe there might be like, who's making the people making these decisions. Maybe when it comes to the animated movie, maybe they were hands off because they're like, oh, this is just a cartoon. This is just something for kids. And they just kind of let them do their own thing or something. I don't know. Right. And then you hear
that's actually a very interesting theory you have.
Yeah, like, and maybe they just were more hands off, and I don't know. Maybe are they dictating things like we need to put this in there, or is it just them trying to be cheap? Like, who can we get right now cheaply to just throw together a script? All right, that seems capable to me. Looks good. It's formulaic. It's got okay. Just make it more action packed at the end. Okay, that's cool. We'll put that in there, right? But like these decisions, they're so misguided. And if you're I understand that there's the whole business money side of it, but man, if your business is making money off of making movies, some shit's got to change at Sony, and it needs to change like now if they want any kind of success in the future outside of being connected to Marvel. Because we've also been hearing even the clashes they're having with Marvel Studios. Spider-Man 4 is on the horizon. Marvel and Sony want to work together to make it. Marvel wants to make a grounded Spider-Man centric movie. Sony wants to go back and bring Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire back, lean into the Spider-Verse. And it's like,
kind of on Marvel's side
that
with this one.
What's that?
Kind of on Marvel's side with that one. If we want just a Peter Parker story, let's just have him be the main character, because now they kind of reset everything with him because now no one knows who he is. So just keep it small and how he's being on his own and maybe trying to get back with MJ. That's all I need.
You have to understand,
that is all I need.
From Sony's standpoint, okay, it makes sense for them to want to do it that way because they need something that will offshoot into the Spider-Verse that they can then take independently, okay? Or even if they have to cut Marvel in for a certain cut, nothing else is working for them. So they need that. So I can see why they're doing that. Now, the problem is really the only way out for them is to do what was done with Blade. But I don't think they're capable of doing that because Blade ended up happening because the executives didn't want to do it. And then when they finally did it, they didn't really want to pay attention to it. Maybe the theory that you have with the animated Spider-Verse, right? So they let Wesley Snipes do what he was going to do, and the directors, and they wrote what they were going to write, and they probably went away thinking, this thing's going to be a failure anyway.
Yeah,
who cares? We'll probably shelve it. And somehow it got out, and the next thing you know, they go, oh my God, people love this. Are you kidding me? Who would have thought? Just about everybody but you execs, right? So that's probably a path there, but no, I don't see them being able to do that because right now all they see is Marvel, help us out. Okay. Mm-hmm. We want to lean into Spider-Verse. So we got something out. Okay. Later. Marvel, they don't want to do it because they don't really care about your Spider-Verse because they make very little money off of that. So they want to lean into Spider-Man, the character, and somehow bring them into their MCU. Right.
Yeah.
So, that's the problem with unfortunately with what had happened, back when Marvel was in big money problems. And the IP ends up getting split. It's rare. It's rare to see that in the world of IP where it gets split right down the middle like that. But it is what it is. There's not much you can do about it.
Yep. Well, we'll see because for every Madam Web that they release, it's just hurting that IP even more. And they're just going to get to like Kraven is probably poised to be a failure right now because of the 1-2 punch of Morbius, Madam Web into Kraven. And when that Kraven trailer dropped, I thought it was dumb, But a lot of people did respond well to that Kraven trailer because of the level of violence that was shown, things like that. But what I'm seeing is they're not understanding the character of Kraven. They're giving us a Kraven that's not the Kraven that people want. If you want to do Kraven, you know what you do? You adapt something like Kraven's Last Hunt. And you have Kraven be the villain of a Spider-Man movie, and you make it dark, and you make it sinister, and you make it like really packed with that kind of energy, not just like, oh, well, he's kind of a bad guy, kind of. His dad's worse, so we're gonna play with that. And oh yeah, lion's blood falls into his wound, so now he's got the powers of a radioactive lion, and it's just like, it just seems like it's just already going off the rails for me. But I don't know, Sony. What do they know? We'll see. We'll find out. Just keep making the animated movies. Yeah. Let's you guys wanted to discuss a little bit more positivity today towards the end of the show. So Amy, why don't you tell us what you've been up to?
Good.
Well, we were just talking about right at the beginning of the show. We're very excited that Netflix dropped the newest Avatar: The Last Airbender that dropped yesterday. I've only watched the first episode, but I'm very into it, and hopefully I can finish it over the weekend. And again, this is one of the rare things that me and Rex can actually like talk and agree about. Like, this is great. This is great.
The original animated series dropped when my daughter was growing up, right? So inevitably, anybody with kids knows that pretty much after a certain point, they monopolize what's on TV. So we watched every episode, the entire series from beginning to end, and I actually got hooked. I felt it was well written. The storyline was good. The premise was good. My daughter enjoyed it. So we watched it all the way through. And then the Legend of Korra, which was the second part, The Next Generation. Mm-hmm. She was old enough now that she wasn't really watching. I tried to watch a little bit of it. And kind of ironically enough, kind of like Amy, I stopped and just never went back. I don't know. I told myself I was going to go back, but just never did.
I'm trying to. I really am. But now, like,
so then they had the live action movie, and now that was enough. My daughter and I watched that together, right? Oh my God, that was bad. It was just so bad. I couldn't. I mean, even Amy thought it was bad. Amy rarely says a movie is bad, no matter how bad it is. But you know, so I'm very excited about when I heard about the series, and I didn't know it just dropped. So, Amy, that's what Amy and I were talking about before we started.
Oh no, that's fine. I've never watched the Avatar. I've never watched the Avatar show. I've never seen the live action movie. So this is a live action adaptation that they're doing as a television series. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's supposed to be truer to the original. You should watch the animated series. It's actually, I'm not a big animation fan. Maybe it's because I saw so much with my daughter.
We're talking about great stories in the chat. Like, it's that's what it is. It's a great story.
I have never seen somebody adapt old history into a new form as well as, since really, to be honest with you, Star Wars, in a very strange sort of way. You know, I look at Dune. I look at Foundation as being different. They're really created in their own little universe. But yeah, you know, it's a very basic concept, but that they build on. But I have to admit, it's an excellent storyline. It really
there's
is.
a lot of people in my life that love Avatar, like absolutely Avatar: The Last Airbender, not the James Cameron movie.
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, but I know a lot of people that love that, and still like the collected like graphic novels are still like top sellers at my shop. So there are people that are just, they love this stuff. So Amy, was you watched the first episode? Was it good? Did you enjoy it?
For the most, I really did enjoy it. Like, I don't know if I could. I still got to see how the rest of the season goes before I could say, oh my God, I loved it. Because I think right now, any dislike I have is a nitpick, and so it's very minuscule. But compared to the last live action adaptation, like, I'm really excited. Like, the fight choreography is really good so far, and the special effects, even though sometimes you can, especially with the scenery, you can kind of tell it's CGI, but with the actual bending effects, to me, look really good. It's fast, it's quick, and people are. It looks like the show. So I was really
that was the one big complaint about Shyamalan's version of it. The first live action was it was not anything like the original show. I think he kind of underestimated the kind of following that Last Airbender had, and thought he could take like artistic kind of latitude, if you will. And his artistic latitude really messed it up. It really did. You know, it's first of all, you know, you're broken into these different tribes, right? Based on the element, whether it be water, land, fire, air. So
we could just quote Robbie like the whole opening of the show.
So the original animated series kind of had, I don't want to say it wasn't a racial element to it, but certain ones look Asian, certain characters look white, whatever the case may be.
Indigenous,
and he just turned that all the way around. Okay, so you know, okay, the characters didn't act like the characters, their behaviors or personalities didn't happen like the way it did in the animated series. So in a very real way, he did it in disservice. And I really like him as a director, but I thought he did a horrible job with that. You know, he didn't understand. I got to be honest with you. Well, after watching his version of it, I'm like, dude, did you even watch the animated series? Because I got a feeling you didn't.
I'm kind of still waiting for an apology for it. Like, just
that's one of those things, right? Where like Paramount, they're like, okay, here's a property that we want to make into live action. Instead of finding the right person with the right pitch for that property, they just go with one of the biggest names they got, right? Because M. Night Shyamalan's a name.
And so I thought we learned that we can't give M. Night a big budget. He's at his best when it's a small budget.
You remember the Captain America TV series or TV movie, made-for-TV movie?
The one with the Italian Red Skull?
I don't remember.
Yeah, but it was I know the one you're talking about. Are you talking about the one from the 70s or the 90s, Rex?
The 70s.
Okay, yeah.
Cap had that clear shield.
Yes.
Right? That was like, on the front of his bike.
Yeah.
That was what that live action film felt like. Like, dude, okay, so you lived up to the part where he has a shield, but dude, what? It's clear.
Amy, would you recommend the animated series, or would you say just watch the live action and I could start there?
No, what I would say watch the anime. Please watch the animated series. I feel like no matter how, and I had a feeling about this live action one, I'll probably always lean on the original, which I gotta get the Blu-ray of eventually.
And it was cute. He did have an elements scenes in the animated series. He would pay homage to like anime, you know, like some of the faces that you would get, like the wide eyes and that kind of thing. So they do little things like that. It was really well written. Let me say this: appropriate for children, but enough hidden humor.
It's a very mature story
for adults that are watching. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing.
And each style of the elements, it's based on some form of martial art. Like the airbending style is based on the like.
And you follow their travels as they're trying. It's I have to admit, it was very well written.
Nice.
And I had watched a lot of animation during that era of my life, unfortunately.
And I'm still excited to see the rest of this live action series, because I do want to see this fresh take on what because already in the first episode we get to see stuff we didn't get to see in the original show. So I'm excited to see how like again certain parts are adapted, what certain elements are explored. That's what you gotta do with an adaptation. What did the original show not do? What could they have done more of? And that's what you can do here. So I'm still excited to see where it goes.
Let me put to you this.
I'll give my full review of the series at some point next week.
There's this one episode towards the end, the last season, I think, where there's a team now, right? A team of them on their quest. And they're hiding out in this town, and they go to watch a show. The show's about them. Okay, and their travels with actors playing, and they're sitting there and just watching the reaction of how they're being portrayed, how the public understands them, as opposed to how they see themselves, was hilarious. I mean, it was just, you know which one, right?
Yeah, I know.
I gotta tell you, it had enough to keep a kid entertained, but I'm sitting there going, oh my God, that's a really great storyline. That's hilarious. Okay.
The show knows how to make fun of itself.
Yeah, see yourself, how others see you as opposed to how you see yourself. That was the message. A 6-year-old going to be lost. 36-year-old, you're going, whoa, hello. That's pretty deep right there.
Okay.
So that was the magic of it. So I have no I was not surprised that it had this long lasting, and it was one of those series they closed it. The last episode closed the loop. Okay, not that like kind of we got canceled, leave it at half. It closed it up.
Yeah,
that was very nice. That was gave you a very complete feeling. That and I wasn't in danger of not being renewed one season or something like that.
It might have been that show, or it might have been Korra. But
no, I think it was the original Airbender.
It might have, and I think they probably wrote that might have been it. And they wrote it. They made sure to write a definitive ending because I think later on they revealed, we had a couple more ideas for another season, but
no, Marcus,
if they weren't going to give us a fourth season, like, okay, here's our main ending, and here's where we were going to go anyway. So here we go.
No, Marcus, I'm watching a live action tonight. I will never go back and watch the original animated series because I've seen every episode at least 8 times. Okay, I think I got it. Okay, all right, I think I got it.
Well, let's wrap up on this. We are a week away from Dune Part 2. How excited are you?
I'm seeing that next weekend. I'm seeing that next Saturday.
I might go to the movie theaters for that one, boys.
Oh man, Rex, I would need to see pictures.
Wow.
Y'all should all get together and go. Maybe John can get you in with his Regal pass or whatever.
I already got my tickets.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited for Dune Part 2. And the reviews are phenomenal for it.
It's a masterpiece.
Yeah. Not like Blade Runner
or Madam Web. All right. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. What do you think about Sony and their Spider-Man properties? What do you think about Avatar: The Last Airbender? How excited are you for Dune? Amy, Rex, thank you so much. What you got coming up?
Well, we have the original art show tonight at 7, and it will be special guest host, Will Gabrielle. So tune in on the XP.
He's got some really nice stuff. A lot, really nice paintings. Really nice sketches. So yeah, even though it's not Nick, Will's got some.
That might be a plus. And of course, we'll be back on Monday. I believe we start our giveaway of 25 slabs and incentives Monday night on our show, starting at 6.
Yeah. So everybody definitely check that out. There's a link to that very specific show in the description below. And as far as we here at PCP, Rockin Robbie Live on Sunday night, but PCP Movie Night, we're going into Tarantino land Monday night. We're going to be talking about Jackie Brown.
Good movie.
It's a great movie, and I think one of the most underappreciated Tarantino films out there, especially when it came out. If you remember, it was not well received when it first came out. And it just blows my mind because that movie is so good. So it's going to be great to revisit that. So Rex, Amy, thank you. You out there, PCP Army, thank you. We are dipping out. Station.